Time for 5 questions with Jason Vieaux. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Who is your favorite guitarist?
Oh my gosh. I'll just give 3 examples from different genres or whatever that is, like music categories. It's so hard to answer. Lorenzo Micheli, maybe. He's one of 20, 30 players I've seen that will kind of blow me away. Either musically or some technical kind of command of the instrument or both. Okay, here I am explaining my answer. Okay, so there's one. Eddie Van Halen was for my generation, our Jimi Hendrix. Love his feel, great right hand, great rhythm, real natural musician, very sort of natural. So, it's a generational thing too, the Eddie thing. I can understand why people of other generations are like, okay, yeah, he's great, but okay, I don't know. There's a million really good electric guitar players, right? Jazz. I guess Pat Metheny is a big one for me, but geez, again, it's sort of Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian, Joe Pass. I listened to so much stuff back in those days, in my 20s. I listened to, just hours, probably music 3 or 4 hours a day. That's the nice thing, I think, to tell students. To remind students is that someone like me, I would practice for 3 or 4 hours, but then I would also listen to music, all kinds of different music, from the avant-garde of any style of music to the most sort of accessible and everything in between, for 3, 4 hours a day. In that time, that's the time to do it when you've got the actual time. When you're really busy, then you don't really have that much time. So there's those guys. They're just thinking offhand. I love listening to a lot of guitar players. I was listening to King Crimson a year ago or something like that. And that Adrian Belew guitar solo on Elephant Talk is just it's like individual things like that, or a song or a particular performance of a particular movement of a particular piece by a particular guitarist. It's that's it. That sort of floats my boat, if that answers your question. So sorry,
Okay.
You said your favorite
that's
guitarist.
fine. That's totally fine.
There's no way to say who your favorite guitarist is. It's impossible.
There's too many. Yeah. Okay. Second question: spruce or cedar?
Oh, spruce.
Strings. Regarding strings now: nylon, carbon, or titanium?
Augustine Blue Regal nylon. I can actually explain that kind of thing. I like carbons. I like all the strings. I think they're all really good, and I think it depends on the guitarist, instrument they're playing, and that kind of thing. I think I've found a way to explain this because as far as why nylon for me. I want to provide the sparkle, the high end, when the music calls for it in that moment, and I want to provide the dark, so the dark and the light, right? The angle rotation and anything in between, and it's pretty sort of specific and kind of instantaneous, and at this point fairly instinctive, right? Mm-hmm. So I like a string that's kind of in the middle, right? Carbons can be really bright, and also for me, now again, I haven't tried out every string, so I'm probably a very bad boy classical guitarist in that I really don't know even 10% of probably all the strings that are out there. But my experience with carbons were that that they had a certain sound, and they possessed that sound, and it was hard to manipulate that sound to your own sort of, for your own purposes. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Nylon seems a little bit more flexible. They're like, yeah, you can make that sound with me. Yeah, cool. Like you can kind of get in there and do that kind of thing. Conversely, okay, so like say Savra's Alliance in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Augustine Regal is kind of, sort of in the center. Like it's the most sort of it's the most kind of flexible to me in that sense. D'Addario, I think D'Addario makes the best product probably on the planet. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they seem really, really consistent, but their trebles going this way in terms of they're sort of dark and creamy and rich, and that's great. But I don't need a string that sort of does that for me. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like it's hard to get the string sometimes to do something other than what it does really, really well. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. It's hard to get it to. It's kind of go, well, okay, that's great. What you're doing is I'm sort of personifying. I'm anthropomorphizing a string, okay, which is really weird. But it's like if you're saying, it's like if we're working with a person, you go, listen, what you do, what you're really good at doing is really great. But what I need from you right now is this, like to do this thing. It's harder to work with. Like I just find that like these kind of strings that are in the middle of this spectrum, if you will, this imaginary spectrum that I'm talking about, they're more flexible. Like they're more all-purpose in a sense. Maybe it's that they're all more all-purpose, and I don't have to monkey around with string tensions and like we were talking about earlier, like switching strings and having a set, like this kind of thing. I don't, I just want to put something on and then go to rehearsal, or get to practicing, that's it.
So basically what you're saying in a nutshell is that the Augustine strings, they're able to adapt to you so that you express yourself fully.
I think that's for the most part. Like nothing's perfect. No string is perfect. You're going to get trade-offs here and there in some area or not. But yeah, I like the trebles. And I like the thickness. I like the diameter is a nice feeling too. I guess I never really I played Savra's Alliance for a few years, and I guess the diameter is a little thin or something like that. Like I like to feel the string. Like it's the vibrato thing too. That's the other thing. The vibrato thing is kind of a big thing in my playing. Like the variance of speed and then the variance of the pitch variance and that kind of thing is different depending on the moment. And I want the string to sort of do that,
All right. Favorite instrument? Cello, piano, guitar?
No favorites there. No. It's kind of like favorite guitarist question. There's no way, because I mean, it's just impossible because there's so much criterion. They all do really great things. That's why we have symphonies, right? So you can kind of go, well, this oboe solo right here, like, sounds right in this thing, or this combination of bassoon and flute, I'm sort of thinking like Stravinsky or whatever. Like, yeah, you need all of them. You got to have all of them in order to create great art. So I don't know that I have a favorite instrument. I'm definitely not. I love the guitar because because I can play it well, and I've invested like my whole life in playing it. And, I guess my favorite instrument is the guitar, just because I have the most sort of personal, connection with it. It's very personal. I have a very personal connection. I've had a lot of people tell me, a lot of classical guitarists actually tell me, like, you seem to have a very deep personal connection with the guitar when you play it. Like you just are very like, kind of fully into it. So I guess it's good.
Favorite instrumentalist? Glenn Gould, Horowitz.
Right.
Any genre, any genre, any instrument.
Heifetz.
Nice.
I think Heifetz is a good example. I mean, that guy was just like an animal. Just complete command over the instrument. Total command. Hilary Hahn is a great violinist. I mean, like I really admire like her because again, just like the command, playing these instruments is so hard, Miguel, right? I mean, this is really, really hard to do at a high level. Like, it takes constant maintenance and obsession and like compulsive, like almost bordering, as Pat Metheny would say, on mental illness, right?
Yeah.
And so like when you see someone like Hillary, you watch someone like Hillary play, it's just kind of like, that's the greatest violin player I've ever seen. Like, it almost seems like she doesn't struggle with anything like on the instrument. Those are kind of I think for me, for what I sort of work on every day, working in this kind of thing every day, like those are like Heifetz and Hillary. Like, it's like, that's, yeah.
Her Bach is crazy good. It's just amazing.
It's not the way.
Here's
my little caveat. Here's my little caveat about that. I wouldn't play Bach the way she plays it musically, but I can separate that. Like, I don't play Bach at all the way she plays it, but like, you know, and actually my Bach has gotten a lot more. I guess on the surface it sounds more free, but to my ear it actually sounds more structure oriented. But it's looser. My Bach is a lot looser. What people will hear at my when the October release of Bach Volume 2, which is BWV 1001, 1005, 1006, shameless plug. Happened coming at you. Shameless plug for the next season.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think, you know, like, it's a little loose. Like, I play live, especially live. I'm even looser than on the recordings in that sense. But to me, it's more of like, it's like, I'm much more into like inflection. I'm not talking about Hill. I'm saying that compared to a lot of other guitarists, I'm much more into melodic inflection, harmonic inflection, and how that is influenced by the structure or architecture of each piece. And then there's like a million other things in between all that too. So everybody plays Bach their own individual way once they've kind of got a handle on how they hear it and how they express it. So I can separate the fact that I don't play Bach the way that Hillary does on the violin, but I can also look at her and just go, God, I wish I was the guitarist. I wish on a guitar that I could be what the violinist, the actual instrumentalist, to answer your question, that she is on that she demonstrates day in, day out on the violin. I wish I could have that kind of command on the guitar. It's insane. So there you go.
Bonus question.
Okay.
Bonus question. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Oh, wow. And just an R.I.P. Rest in peace to Charlie Watts.
Yes.
I take it. Okay, those are the only two bands on the earth that I had to cherry pick the instrumentalist, I would definitely. I'm a huge Ringo Starr fan, because my answer to your question is the Beatles. It's kind of like by a considerable margin. But here's the thing, and this is very me. I really took the time in my late 20s and again in my 30s and about every 7 or 8 years to kind of listen to the Rolling Stones again, very briefly for a couple of days. And I tried to listen to like Black and Blue, because that's not one of their great records or whatever, or Dirty Work from '86, and Black and Blue is like '75. So I once in a while, if I have the time, I try to put something into that. But the golden period of the Rolling Stones is definitely, it's unquestionably like '68 to '72. That is when the Stones became the Stones. And I respect anyone's, when someone says they are the greatest rock and roll band, or sort of like white European rock and roll band that's kind of ever existed. It's like, okay, I'm not going to argue that. However, I prefer listening to the Beatles as music, generally, most days, and Led Zeppelin, which came a little bit after them, to the Rolling Stones. But I would never argue with somebody that the Stones are the greatest band in the world. But my answer to your question is the Beatles.
Thank you.